What's up, everybody? I'm Dave Miranda, and this is episode 137 of Just Give Me 5. I hope you guys are doing great. Continue to be amazing. We got a really awesome show lined up for you today. But first things first, I need you to hit that like button. I need you to hit that subscribe. And I need you to spread the word about Just Give Me 5. All right. If you guys caught episode 136, you saw we had none other than the legendary, iconic Pat McMahon. And let me tell you, I still get joy just knowing that we're able to make that happen. You know what I mean? Because, Pat is just an absolute just gem. He's golden out here in Arizona and in the entertainment field, period, and it's like, of course, I don't want to put the man's age out there, but he's definitely up there in age. And so the fact that we're able to make this happen alone is a blessing as well. So, I can't thank that man enough. And my friend Laura Hoka, who was the one who actually set the connection up for us. It was just incredible on so many levels, So make sure you guys watch episode 136. All right. But today's guest has been an absolute staple in the Arizona community and is easily one of the kindest human beings ever. We're going to talk about how he got into music, as well as his start into poetry. We're also going to talk about how he became a DJ, as well as his college radio journey, his speakeasy events that he throws, and so much more. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I present to you Aran Kelly, aka DJ Catalyst.
Hey, what's up, everybody? My name's Aran Kelly, aka Catalyst, and all I'm saying is, just give me 5. Really, it dates back to when I was a kid. I was born and raised in the same house. I'm the youngest of 3 boys. My oldest brother is 17 years older than I am. And so he actually washed me under the sink after I was born, and as a kiddo, he'd take me around to the corner as a baby, and he'd kind of hand me around, and it was like pimps and thugs on the corner, and they would be playing their music, their funk, and so that would be the soundtrack to this familial experience, which I would equate with music.
Yeah.
And later on in life, I would seek that at the Blunt Club and then try to create it at the Speakeasy. But it was those moments, Dave, which really felt good to me. And as I say, they overlapped with the music that I was hearing and the music and the vibe that I would try to seek out.
Nice, man. Because you grew up in Cali. You grew up in Northern Cal?
Yeah, Northern California on the south side of Palo Alto by the train tracks. In between 2 flop houses, there was a drug house where you could get drugs and a prostitute. And on the other end was another flop house. And age 5, 6, 7, 8, we used to figure 8 race around the barrier right out front.
Yeah.
I was too young to partake in any of it, but I saw it. I remember seeing that and experiencing it. So.
Right, absolutely. And so at that time, growing up out there as a kid, were there any open mic, jams that they would have in the neighborhood, or was there anybody that would throw house parties and have jams that you witnessed?
Yeah, that would happen at the park around the corner. We would get live, man. Again, it was when I was a kiddo.
Yeah.
And so I would experience these things at a young age, and they would have profound influences on me as I would grow up. Not so much open mics when I was a kiddo, but I remember folks rapping, in the park, and also when I was in high school, Dave, participating in freestyle raps, and I felt like it came from somewhere. It came from when I was, a kiddo, Cuando Niño in the park, and
Right.
So yeah, I would say I would definitely attribute my musical prowess these days to those times when I was a kiddo.
What was the song that you heard that you were like, okay, I like this?
Yeah, man, it had to be The Message.
Okay, Grandmaster Flash, and yeah, man, Melly Mel.
Absolutely, Dave, because I would see those things that he was talking about in my neighborhood, in the park especially, like the machine gun gray backboard brick. It had, it smelled like piss in the slide.
Yeah, man.
Broken glass was there, it was factual. So it meant something to me. He was speaking basically the images. He was giving words to the images that I would see and also experience.
You made the transition into spoken word. When did that happen?
Yeah, you know, that's a great question. Dave, poetry was always in my house as a kiddo. Both parents were educated and there'd be books and, you know, books of poetry. Um, and honestly, man, growing up listening to poetry before bed or just kind of in my free time was something that I would carry into my later life, especially after I was in a bike accident where I had to relearn how to walk, talk, and tie my shoe and also learn the language.
Oh, wow. What happened with that?
Well, you know, I was coming home from soccer practice and I was hit by a furniture truck, like one of those big court furniture trucks, and it sped up to beat the yellow, and I was on the other side of the street, El Camino, and saw the traffic slowing down, so thought I would, you know, make it. Unfortunately, on the other side, this truck sped up and I flew 50 feet, and I had my helmet on, fortunately, but I was comatose for 13 days and punctured lung, broken femur. I was tore up. You know, Dave, when you twist like a water bottle after you finish drinking it, and you let go of it, and it kind of like comes back to shape. That's a bit like my body now post that accident, man. And so poetry had a profound influence on me during those times because it helped me engage with the language again. Right? And like the rhythms and the fluid nature of words.
Wow, man. How long was that process of trying to, rehabilitate?
That was about 10 years, man. So I basically had to start over at the age of 10. I'm 45 now. But like mentally, you know, and emotionally, it's more like 35.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting dynamic there with that.
Wow, man.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, because, during that time, you had probably so much alone time, right? So it's like, it's just kind of you, you and your thoughts, but you just yourself really kind of rediscovering yourself, period, trying to learn things again. So it's like you're taking off of those experiences. And then that's where that comes in, because that's really what rap music is. I mean, it's rhythm and poetry, you know what I mean? So it's like it's speaking from a poetic standpoint, you know what I mean? So that's usually where a lot of people start.
Absolutely, Dave. Absolutely. I can empathize with that in so many ways. Like, there's that element of survival as well, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
How are these people living in these conditions? And how are they coming out of it?
Right.
You know, and there's that great line, and I think it was The Freshest Kids, where one of the artists said, coming from where I did, the environment told me that I wasn't shit. And then I would paint graffiti, and now I'm in an art gallery, and everyone's telling me that I am the shit.
Right.
And I think that speaks to that same element of survival. Well, it's like, well, what do I do with this circumstance, which isn't necessarily preferable, but still there are elements which I can pull from to make beautiful.
Definitely, bro. Definitely. So from there, it's like, okay, so you're doing that. When did you make the transition to Arizona?
Great question. So that was right after high school, 1996. So my older brother Shannon was recruited for football at ASU.
Okay.
That was under Bruce Snyder, who was an incredible coach because he saw in his players something that maybe others didn't, like a Billy Bean effect.
Right.
And what I'm saying is he really valued his practice players the same as his starting players, because he felt like his practice players were the ones who were preparing the starters, right?
Exactly.
And that's where Shannon fell in, and he was, I think, 175 coming out of high school as a tight end and outside linebacker. So we had to really hit the training table and hit the weights. And again, Dave, that speaks to the survival nature of our upbringing and our interests, because instead of giving in and throwing in the towel, he stepped up and hit the weights and did what he had to do to make it through and get on the field,
Yeah, it's just like you never fold, man. You just keep going, So at that point, were you doing any spoken word spots in town?
At that time, Dave, I was growing up listening to KZSU Stanford, The Drum, which I think currently has the longest running hip hop show, college radio show. Mm-hmm. And it was my goal to somehow make it on that show.
Okay.
At the time, I was making mixtapes off the radio and then taking my favorite mixes from the mixes and making my own.
Yeah.
I had some friends in the neighborhood, Ricky Rucker, who had turntables. At that time, no one was really doing spoken word, to go back to your question. However, I was hearing again the rhythms, and I wanted to put my own lyrics to beats. Right. And I remember my senior year in high school, I said to my friends, I don't know how I'm going to do it this Friday night, but I'm going to get on the radio at KZSU Stanford, so just tune in. And I went over there at 6 p.m. and at midnight, I'd been there for 6 hours. Raggedy Andy, who had gone to my high school as a senior when I was a freshman, walked in, And he knew me, and that was my in, Dave. And so he said, how long you been here? And I was like, 6 hours. And he's like, yo, come into the studio. And he let me close out the show, and I was giving props to people in the neighborhood, Shan and Lynn Ray and Baltazar and Eduardo and Ricardo and everybody. And they had a band in studio, and I went to leave the studio, and I was greeted by the band, who was Sacred Hoop, and Luke Sick's sister was in my graduating class in high school. Wow. And he was coming out here to record it to Arizona. And he was actually, I think, maybe one of the first bands that Dumper booked at the Blunt Club. Wow. And so it's funny how those things kind of come together and tie in later on down the road.
And then because you started hosting as well at Blunt, correct?
I did, man. I hosted there, I DJ'd there. It was both poetry and, hosting the night. That was over at the Priceless Inn, man. Yeah. Back in 2002. Merge was on tour with Eminem for the Anger Management Tour, and so I needed to fill in. And Dumper looked at me and he was like, what's up, man? And I said, I got you, no problem. Right. And in fact, speaking of poetry, I met Dumper on that tip because when I was a freshman here at ASU, I took my scholarship money over to headquarters, to the head shop, and made some purchases there. And in the back of the head shop was Rob Markham, and he was in a band, a ska band, and I would read him my poems. Yeah. And because I felt like he, being a musician, would give me good feedback. Right. And he was like, yo, man, you have like this flavor to you. And, I got this roommate named Dumper, and I'd like to introduce you. Right. And I went over there, and at the time I was spitting poetry religiously every Wednesday night at the Chinese food restaurant. Okay. And Chris Hill, who's in the Drunken Immortals, was in the jazz band there. Yeah. And I was invited one night at that place to participate in a poetry slam. I didn't quite know what that was at the time. Yeah. And I brought that up in Rob's living room with Dumper, and I was like, yo, it's actually tonight if you guys want to go. And we bombed over there to the same restaurant, and they had a stage set up and chairs and a microphone, and there were like 6 people there in the audience, Dave. And I went over to the judge's booth where I recognized the guy who invited me. And I was like, yo, man, what's up? Like, can I get down? Can I spit? And at that time, I was just a mic hog, man. Like, wherever there was a mic, I wanted up on it. Hungry. Yes. Hell yeah. And I saw one, so I was like, what's up? And they said, nah, man, you ought to qualify to do this. And so I kind of went back with my tail between my legs to Rob and Dumper and told them. And Rob was like, nah, fuck that. Like, if it's on, go for it. And so I decided, yeah, we came all the way down here. So I jumped on stage, popped the mic, sure enough it was on, and I just busted, and the judge came up, man, and he tried to grab the mic out of my hand, Dave, and I just sidestepped him and finished out, and then, left the mic, and the judge was like, I don't know who that was, and Rob was like, Catalyst. And 2 weeks later, Dumper hit me up, and he was like, hey, man, I'm opening this club called the Blunt Club, and it's got spoken word poetry and DJs and MCs and B-boys. And I was like, I'm in California. I'm working in a warehouse to pay for rent in AZ. I'll be back, though, in 2 weeks. I got you. Sign me up. And he's like, I already did.
How did you come up with the name, by the way?
That's a great story. The name Catalyst was given to me, Dave. I understand in like the hip-hop culture, like that's how you get your name, right? Yeah. You get out there in the scene and you're doing something, and based on how you behave and perform, you'll get a name.
Right, true.
Maybe not always, but this is how it was with me. Yeah. And my name Aran would have been cool because it's 4 letters. But Catalyst came along because, well, during '96, man, it was an election year. And I'm not trying to get political here, man, but I was in a 500-person lecture class at ASU, and the teacher one day says, I'm going to show you guys a video, but it's important that you don't tell anybody, because if it gets out that I showed it to you, I could lose my life or my job indefinitely.
Life?
Right. He said, I used to be in the military, and it's...
Oh, wow, okay. Got you.
And so he shows this video, and it was kind of, dum-dum-dum, and it seemed a little bit hokey. And we all left kind of quiet, and I ended up going online and digging a little bit. And it turned out that there was some information about this video that he showed, which alluded to a couple people getting paid certain amounts of money to corroborate stories, one of which was the video that he showed us. Right. So I wasn't trying to be a rabble rouser, but I just wanted to kind of talk about it. And so I went to the teacher and I asked him if we could take 5 minutes, and he was like, oh no, man, like absolutely not, strict curriculum. So now I was like, yo, this is kind of fishy now. So,
Right.
so I went ahead and printed out a 1-page sheet, basically summarizing what I had found, and I had put on the bottom the URL for it and said, sincerely, you know, your classmate, Aran Kelly. And I printed out 500 copies of it. And I put them in my trunk, Dave, and I got cold feet. However, I had this cassette tape of Tupac, and it was just, I had it on repeat and in the car. And that morning on the way to school, he was saying, sometimes, man, you got to just stick your chin up and your chest out and handle your shit.
Against the world, man. Yeah, man. Yep.
Thank you. Yeah, and so that was the motivation I needed that morning to open the trunk up, man, and get all 500. And I went up the aisles in 20, 50, 30, sat in the middle of the classroom. The teacher got his hands on one, and he sent his TAs to go collect them. And he popped his mic and he said, is Aran Kelly here? I need to squash a bug. And I was like, damn, it's on now.
Wow.
And so I stood up, and there were people like mumbling, like, yo, that's Shannon's little brother, you know, and they're, you know, girls from the dorm who I was trying to impress were like, yo, that's that knucklehead. And I was real calm, Dave, and he's like, yo, what's the meaning of this? Like, you know, you didn't get permission to hand this out. And I said, and everyone's like, yo, and they looked at me, and I said, sir, like, and with all due respect, I did ask you, you know, if we could talk about it, and this is university, you know, so, you know, I thought that because you said no, it was still important for others to find out if they're interested. And the class was like, whoa, like back to him, and it was a bit like a tennis match. And he was like, yo, I told you guys that I could lose my job and my life, that if if it gets out that I showed it to you. Whoa, back to me.
Right.
And I said, sir, again, all due respect, you're telling me and the rest of the class that you could lose your job and your life over a story that might not be true. I mean, that's what I wrote. And the class was like, what?
Yeah.
And so he was like, hey man, like come talk to me after class. And so I did, and he's like, I'm not gonna dock your grade. And I said, well, if you do, then I'm gonna tell the university. And so I went home that summer, and I was in the creek, you know, bullshitting with my friends and, you know, just talking, catching up, and I told them the same story. And I said, I didn't have a DJ name at the time, and I said, you know what, fellas, like it felt really good to turn the rock over and show the bottom, the other side of the stone. It felt good to be the catalyst, to, you know, the one to do that. And my homie was like, that's it.
That's it.
That's your DJ name and your. And the other part of that, Dave, is that like a catalyst scientifically is not always positive. In terms of poetry, I wasn't trying to be the peace, love poet. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
Like, because that's not real.
Right.
And scientifically, a catalyst can be something that charges and creates something, some kind of movement, either positively or negatively.
Right.
And that really felt like it fit my life, you know?
Yeah, man. Did you and that guy, did you guys end up being cool later, or?
At ASU, they have the state press. Now I was at the college for like 8 years because, you know, the head injury, I was taking my time, all that, switched majors a few times. So I was there for 8 years, which was long enough, Dave, for me to pick up a state press, which on the front cover had dude's face, and the slug said, university charges professor with 3 dissertations due at the end of the year. So that was their polite way of telling him to fuck off. So I imagine, Dave, that he was kind of maybe known for this kind of stuff.
So from then, you started getting into DJing. How did, you know, when did that, what sparks you to want to get into that?
Beautiful. So my dad was a DJ on a boat during the Vietnam War. And beyond that, you know, they say like, you know, war is bloody. So I like to say radio's in my blood. When I was a kiddo, my dad would, you know, was musical. Like my parents were very musical, so were my brothers. But my dad would encourage us as kids to go to Goodwill, and we'd buy receivers and we'd take them apart.
Okay.
And my dad would say, you know, well, this is how it works. So there was that engineering aspect of it. But then also, my brother Shannon and I, when we were kiddos, we used to get model airplanes. And on the backs of these boxes were descriptions of the airplane. And so we would get like the Top Gun soundtrack and play it off to the side, and then with a microphone read the backs of these boxes and see like who could make it sound the coolest.
Okay.
Beyond that, man, my older brother Nick had a turntable, and I would get my hands on that, and my parents would just say, "Don't break it."
Yeah.
So you know, rubbing the record back and forth was not unfamiliar to me. But then beyond that, going into DJing, like into college, man, I was influenced by people in the neighborhood again. Ricky Rucker had turntables,
Okay.
like a set, like
Yeah.
deck, and records, all that, man. And I would go to his house and we'd get down and he'd show me what was going on. And
This is back at the ranch. This is in Cali.
yeah, this is in the neighborhood.
Yeah, yeah.
This is right around the corner. And
Yeah.
so again, there was that familial piece, right, which I was used to, and from when I was, you know, a baby. And so to have all this happen and in the same place, not only set my neighborhood apart from the rest of Palo Alto, but Dave made it paradise for me as a kid growing up. Yeah, we had a bum sleeping in the slide at the park.
Right.
Yeah, we had drug deals and, you know, that shit happening.
Yeah.
But it was also special where everybody knew each other, man. And
Community, you know what I mean?
absolutely.
So then you started doing some DJing gigs. One, I believe, that was extremely fascinating to me was you got to DJ for Gil Scott-Heron. Incredible. Tell us about that.
Yeah, man. So at that time, I was DJing for a faction called Black Pearl Poetry. Ed Mabry was the host of that. So I had come back to Arizona after graduating in 04. I had busted my shoulder and needed to get that scene so made that happen in California. Was working for my dad in Monterey, and then made my way back here to Arizona because I couldn't quite start what I started here in California. I tried with Blunt Club a couple times and it was cool or whatever, but not the same. And so my heart was really here. And so I came back to Arizona, and there was a little bit of a buzz about my name and my pedigree.
Yeah.
And so I kind of try to pick up where I left off with that. And not only with the poetry, but also now with the DJing. And I think, Dave, that some of these circumstances happen because you create them yourself.
Yeah.
Ed said that he needed a DJ for an event. I didn't even ask what event or who was playing there, and I was like, I got you. Turned out to be the one and only Gil Scott. And it was 2 shows. I'll never forget. I was over there on Mill Avenue. You know, the Harkins Theater at the time was not a theater, but just a rented space.
Yeah.
And it was 2 shows in one night, man. And I remember his manager was super salty, and said something to me like, "Now don't play any of that rap crap." And it was like, "Pal, like your artist, like was, you know, like founded it."
Right.
You know,
right,
like.
exactly.
But I didn't, and I would have loved to have played By the Time I Get to Arizona by Public Enemy. I had that in the crate, but there was quite an experience, Dave, because again, this was an artist, Gil Scott, who was introduced to me by my oldest brother, Nick.
Wow, okay.
And it brought me back to that time that I was the baby.
Yeah.
And you mentioned, you know, like what song was it that you remembered that really grabbed you? It was also Gil Scott. It was these poets. It was the last poets. It was Umar bin Hassan.
Yeah, man.
You know, I remember when I was a baby, same thing at the park, man. Nick's buddy, Dean, he had come up and as a way of embracing Nick said to his friends, like, "Hey man, Nick's a neighbor just like the rest of us." But of course, you know, he didn't say neighbor. And Nick's response was, "Hey, none of us are neighbors."
Oh, got you. Yeah.
Right? And like, again, like I was too young to understand the words, but the vibe and the feeling was like, yeah, man, right on, you know, like.
Right.
So again, like that was something that I would try to seek out, Dave, and try to create, and it would play into how I would grow and blossom here in Arizona as a DJ and a poet, because I was embraced, man.
Yeah.
I was embraced by the community.
You were telling me prior to this interview, you have a Charlie Tuna story. I really want to hear this.
That was a great one. Yeah, I met Charlie Tunafish a couple of times. First time I met him was through the homie Jules Demetrius. Jules Demetrius was a poet from the Blunt Club and part-time host.
Yep.
Right on.
Yeah.
And actually his baby's mom, I DJ'd her wedding, and I also saw their first child take their first steps.
Wow.
So we were close, Jules and I, man, and he was funny, man. Like, he didn't have a car, he didn't drive around, he relied on buddies for rides.
Yeah.
And he hit me up out of the blue and he was like, "Hey, can I get a ride from you real quick to a venue? I've got a painting to drop off." And I said, "Yeah, sure." So I went over, picked him up. Still, I have no idea where we're going, who we're seeing. And we're driving now over to the fairgrounds. And so I'm thinking, okay, it's a bigger event. And he's directing me to go where the buses are in the back. We hop out, he says, follow me. We walk up to a tour bus. He's got the painting in hand, knocks on the door opens, and there's Charlie Tunafish.
Yeah.
And he greets Jules because those cats grew up together, apparently. They're from the same block.
Oh, okay.
And so they've known each other.
From Cali? I didn't know that.
Yeah, they went to the same school, I think. And
Got you.
so Jules hands, Charlie the painting, he loves it. And then Jules says, oh, hey, man, before we go, I forget, like, this is my homie Catalyst, and he's the illest lyricist that I know. And so Charlie, having been introduced to him like that, with kind of like raised brows, leans down, he says, it's very nice to meet you. And I was like, you're Charlie Tunafish,
Right,
like,
right.
Igualmente, very nice to meet you as well, man. And it was just such a natural introduction, Dave. Me helping a friend out, Jules helping a friend out,
Right.
And it was nothing strange. I didn't go Hollywood. And I would find those introductions throughout my time here in Arizona, throughout my pursuit of DJing, throughout my pursuit of poetry, being in the right place at the right time, but having that hunger, being the catalyst that would get me to those opportunities.
Exactly.
Right? And then moving right in those opportunities, right? Great story, man. Thank you for that.
Absolutely. You ended up creating a movement of your own called the Speakeasy. Tell us about that.
Yeah, another great story. So I was playing soccer for a Tempe co-ed league, and we had just gone 7-0, ended the season, and across the street from the playing fields was a 7-Eleven. And I got in there to get a Gatorade, and I saw a homie named Jeff, and Jeff, I knew from back in the day, Priceless Inn, Blunt Club days. He was managing Emerge McVeigh and, forgive me, I'm blanking on the name of his group. I'll remember if I don't think about it.
Whose group?
Emerge McVeigh?
Oh, Bionic Jive.
Bionic Jive,
Yeah,
thank you.
yes,
Yep.
Yeah, I got you.
He was managing Bionic Jive, who was on tour again with Eminem for the Anger Management Tour. And he, of course, knew Dumper. And Emerge at that time needed to keep something going for the label while he was off tour. So Iovine was like, I don't know, start a night. And so Emerge linked up with Jeff, who was already his manager. And Jeff said, I know a guy named Dumper Fu, and let's do this poetry night.
Yeah.
And so Blunt Club started. And then, as I say, I was brought into that early by Dumper. And fast forward back to the 7-Eleven after the soccer game where I meet Jeff. He says, hey man, I'm working at Hollywood Alley right now and we're about to go under. And so I need some of that Blunt Club magic. Can I rely on you, lean on you to start a night? And I said, yeah, for sure. And he said, cool, come by Hollywood Alley on Sunday and we'll talk about it. And the Speakeasy was the name that I'd come up with. And basically it was a carbon copy of my introduction to the Blunt Club, where there'd be DJs, poets, and live art. And come what may from there, that's what I was familiar with. And Dumper was amazing in changing the whole landscape in terms of incorporating those elements for club nights, because when I got here it was a bit sparse. I'm not saying it wasn't here, right? It just wasn't maybe as prevalent.
Exactly.
And maybe it was because I was new and I missed some years as well. And I'm definitely humble to the point where I can step back and allow people who were there at that time to speak their piece and say their piece. And you do a great job of providing that platform. But the Speakeasy came out as basically a replica of the early Blunt Club days, man. And it was built on the success of those early Blunt Club days under the guidance of one of the OGs of Blunt Club, man. That was Jeff, the bartender and the manager of Emerge McVeigh. And so we started that up over at the Hollywood Alley. And instead of going 3 months, we went 8 months. We would pack the house. We would have movie nights. I brought in Ruben from UM.
Yeah.
He would DJ, we would show movies. There was Taco Tuesdays. It would crack, man.
That's dope, man.
And we really had a huge party to close out that venue, man. and a really beautiful thing. And so it's been a pleasure more recently to bring it to the Yucca Tap Room with the homeboy Crash, who I've been in cahoots with for, you know, the duration that I've been here too, you know, 20 plus years. And so he knows how we work together, and, you know, if when things are going well and when they're not, and when we need to pivot.
Absolutely.
And so he's been a great partner with the Speakeasy. And it's been a great way for us, Dave, to spotlight local artists in the realms of DJs and poets, as well as visual artists. The Yucca Gallery Lounge is awesome, having that space available. And you know, people are moving differently now, Dave, post-pandemic. So, you know, we'll see how long it lasts. I think it's healthy to know when to say a when, and call it quits when it seems like it's at that point. But we've had some amazing nights with Defy, and, you know, just a whole slew of my favorite DJs and MCs and poets and graphic artists. So it's been a wonderful opportunity for me, Dave, to get back in touch with my friends and my fellow artists in the community, and really try to kind of kickstart those old days and see if we're still there, if there's any juice there, or if we can all just kind of, you know, bow our heads, tip our hats, and say thank you. Thank you. I originally came here with an idea of pursuing realty at ASU. That didn't amount to anything. While I was figuring it out on campus, I was walking around and saw a flyer that invited students to the radio station. And I just, you know, bells and whistles went off, and I thought, you know, this is an opportunity here. Because in the back of my head, I wanted to pick up where I left off as a senior in high school in Palo Alto at KZSU. I grew up then on the drum and on Chuy Gomez, and I really wanted to have a shot at it, and maybe show my dad, you know, hey, like, I'm okay at this too, and, you know, I'm gonna do it, but maybe a little bit differently. Right. And so I went all in, and but I was stifled because I had to intern for a semester before they would let me on the air. And at that point, it was like, this is the beginning of doing whatever it takes to have a seat at the table. And that's a big part of the hustle, man, whoever you ask, I think. And so I sat in on this guy's show, Michael, I think was his name, and I remember at the end of the semester, he allowed me to play one song, and I dropped the needle on I Wanna Rock With You by Michael Jackson.
Nice, okay.
And it was just my shout out to the community, like, I'm here, and like, this is what I wanna do, how I wanna get down. And when I got my show, I was a little bit, my head was a bit inflated because I wanted to do my poetry and spin my music, and I found out early, Dave, that although I liked it, maybe it wasn't, you know, what folks wanted to hear every week.
Right, what they had in mind, you know,
And so I was like, well, how can I expand this? And like, what more can I do with this? And I started to then think about the ventures that I already had my hands in, i.e. the poetry at the Chinese food restaurant, the contacts I was making. I got a cassette tape from a girl which had Drunken Immortals on it. And immediately I was like, who are these cats rapping? And then so I started to collect these items and also see groups performing locally. And I thought, this is it, man. This is what I need to be doing with the radio show, is getting folks from the community in here and providing a platform for them to be heard. Because at that time, this is like prior to CD distribution, prior to internet distribution. It was cassette tapes, man. And if you had a cassette tape of being on the radio, you were something, you know, at that time.
Oh, absolutely. Look at you. That's why I like the old Stretch and Bobbito tapes, dude. Those are like just golden. You know what I mean? Yeah, so I get it.
I got a shoebox full of cassette tapes of old shows, and that was my goal, man, was to put local artists on, but also kind of grow. I don't want to say maybe my image, but let the community know who Catalyst is, both on the mic and the turntables. I wasn't trying to front like I was a b-boy. I can boogie, but I'm no b-boy house, you know.
Right. You know your lane. You know what I mean? That's all that matters.
Absolutely, respect to all elements, man. But I was really trying to carve lanes in both DJing and poetry. And that radio show, man, opened so many doors, Dave. So many doors, man. And allowed me to be not only a fan of the music that I was going to see, but also somewhat of a promoter and a provider of this mixtape.
Right.
And I'll never forget, man, Atlas Hopkins, dropped Hood Famous for Maryvale.
Right.
And I was just feeling those lyrics, and he would start the $1 Million Teacher Project, and he would honor me with that award.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
Some 20 years later. And so these connections, man, like they were very important at the time and remain important. And these doors that were open then, are still open. But it also allowed me, Dave, to delve into teaching, because I was awarded at the radio station with a plaque that had names on it of members of the radio station who worked hard and who were dedicated. And my name and the first station director's name was on the award. It's called the Hornstein Kelly Award for Hard Work and Dedication. And it wasn't given out annually, because not everyone showed up who kind of had those skills bestowed on them, right? They were, some people were with it, others were kind of like in and out. But there were those, man, who were very dedicated and who were in it. Yeah. And I saw a lot of me in them, man. And so I was asked to mentor those students and set an example and also teach them. And that's where I really got a taste for teaching, the enjoyment of seeing people grow, seeing people listening to what I was saying and maybe going a different route with it or trying to copy it, which was very flattering. And it just, I can't express how many doors it opened for me, Dave, and how thankful I am for that opportunity. And people that came out of that radio station, Dave, Bridget Dowd, working for NPR, she came after me. Oh, wow, yeah. Willie Pitts, who's working for Channel 12, him and I graduated together. Tony Jackson, he's doing Olympic announcing for wheelchair soccer.
Oh, nice.
Just a whole slew of names. And so to have, and Mike Bauer, who does in-game announcing for the D-backs, to have my name intermixed with those names, as well as names like Umar bin Hassan and Gil Scott Heron and Dumper Fu and Emerge and so many others from Blunt Club, is just such a huge honor, and I'm so humbled by it, Dave. But I really feel like it was a zeitgeist that I was a part of, and that I've now continued to grow from and expand on and like bring other people in, like students of mine. I had one student, I tell my kids, like, if you come in my class and I'm helping you, don't have your phone out. And this one kid had his phone out and he was taking a picture of one of Dumper's paintings in my room, my classroom. And I was like, man. And so I walked up behind him, looked over his shoulder, and he had the word Dumper written, texted. And I just said to him, I was like, how do you know Dumper, man? Like, who are you texting that knows Dumper? And it was my man. He was a feature at the Speakeasy. Not seen. I remember his name. Maybe I shouldn't say his name because he's a graph artist. I don't want to put him on blast. But it was his nephew that was there, and he also was a graph artist. Yeah. And here is so many years later, 20 years later, the ability now to influence these youngsters. Yeah. And that came about by way of me opening the door at the college radio station and taking some steps in there. And that led to production, which got me in the studio with Drunken Immortals, which got me into Crass, where I'd be certified and would get second engineering credits on the Insects album and Captain Squeegee and just a bunch, and even DJ Organic and a lot of people who I look up to still,
Absolutely, man. And then with the college radio, you have announced practically almost every sport, huh, over there? I think except football.
Yeah, it's exactly right, Dave. Every sport but football. ASU's got a guy, and he's great. Currently, I'm announcing women's water polo at Mona Plummer Aquatic Center, and I've been doing that for 15 years under the direction of my good friend, who's just an absolute pleasure to work for. And I've seen so many incredible games and announced so many incredible games. You know how ESPN's got the top 10 plays? Like, I've seen shit, Dave, that those athletes, those women athletes do in the pool, which is just phenomenal, man. And like, of course, they don't make that top 10 list, but should. Right. And I've just had so many opportunities there too. You know, Mike Phelps, you know, I got to meet him. He's the swim coach over there at ASU. And, you know, Ray Anderson, who just retired, and just shouting these folks out who were there, you know, at the matches, and making connections outside of there with players and their parents. And it's just such an amazing opportunity, Dave, that I'm so thankful to be a part of. And again, like influence students. I announce at the high school that I teach at, football and basketball seasons. Again, it's really nice, Dave, to understand that this came from somewhere. My dad's sitting on a boat in Vietnam, you know, and also a familial place, my neighborhood, my brothers, their influence, my parents' influence, and also my peers, man, people like yourself. You know, I was the hip hop director, man. I mean, I remember, you know, hearing your name and you know, as the hip hop director at that station at the Blaze, the college radio station, you know, and then to go on beyond that, man, and work for NPR. Like, I would listen to NPR through the wall of my bedroom every morning. My mom would blast that shit. And to work for an NPR faction in Santa Cruz, post-graduation from ASU, was the absolute mountaintop for me, man. And my dad would then go on the board for that station, and we'd work together there. And
oh, that's cool, man.
Yeah. It was funny, man. I remember getting a phone call from Pops, who was like, "Hey, man, tell me everything you know about DJing." I was like, "Why? What's going on?" Pops was like, "I own the station." And I was like, "Where do we start here?" Wow. Unfortunately, it went under. But and it was too bad, man, because it was the community loved that station, and I really loved working for it. But all good things coming to an end, my friend, and I'm just happy to be a part of the things that I have been a part of, and I look forward to the things that are in the future, like this 5-track EP that I've been putting together with Masai Goods from the Antidote Needle Project. I did record his demo cassette when I was in college, and he went on, of course we all know, to be big in Canada and play in Scotland and all over the world. And so him and I have been getting busy over the past 4 months recording my own poems over his beats, and that was a really beautiful thing how that happened organically, Dave, where he bought a painting that I collaborated on with Queen Loopy. She made the painting and I put my poem on it, and Masai bought it, and he's got it in his studio. And he was sitting there one day looking at this painting, reading the poem, and he hit me up and he's like, "Hey, Catalyst, man, like, you're helping put folk on with the speakeasy, and that's great and all, but like, what about you? Like, what, you know, let's record you and get your shit out." And I said, "Yeah," you know, it was funny because it was at a turning point, Dave, where I was like, damn, I mean, I'm 45 now. I did this thing with the poetry and the DJing, but I'm getting older. Like, maybe I just, you know, sideline that and just focus on the teaching and, you know, make that my thing now and my focus. And it was almost like clockwork. He hit me up and he's like, "Hey, man, let me record you." And it was just going to be 1 track, Dave. And he sent me the beat, and I was trying to match it, you know, lyrically. And we went and recorded it at his crib. And bless his heart, he was real kind. He was like, "Yo, man, it sounds good and good for you. And, you know, if you want to work on it, let me know." And I studied that song, man, and for like 6 hours, and went back to his studio. And I said, "You know, it's kind of clunky. Like, I just, you know, words aren't really falling on beat. Like, what if I kicked it like this?" And then since I've been practicing, I'd found the words to put on beat, and he was like, "Yo, do that. Yeah. Try that out." And so 1 track turned into 5, well, 4, and then like the 5th track is one that I recorded and wrote and produced, and I've got my cousin spitting it, and it's significant because the poem's called Dominoes, and both of our grandma taught us how to play dominoes.
There you go.
And so to have him spit it with his English accent in England, in the house where I was like right next to like my grandma's ashes was again an amazing experience. So I'm thankful for all of them, Dave. And this as well, I appreciate the opportunity, man, and it means a lot to me. Thank you. Thank you, Jimmy. Yeah, man, I got a great one. I mean, I have so many, right? But one bubbles up, man, where I was working at Alhambra High School, and I think I was in my 6th year certified teaching special ed, had my own classroom. I think I had like 24 on my caseload. Anyway, there was one kiddo named Justin. His disability came from the fact that his parents also had disabilities,
Okay.
and he knew that.
Okay.
And so he was upset about it. And this kiddo, he was a bit off the chain, man. He was a bit off the hook. So, you know, I had to kind of look out for him a lot. And he had seizures. That was in his IEP.
Okay.
And at the time, I was announcing for Alhambra sports,
Yeah.
and they also brought me on to announce the graduation ceremony
Okay.
that was being held over there at the fairgrounds. And one day, Justin came into class and he didn't have his ID on him, a stickered ID. And everyone had to have one on campus, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Including myself. So a replacement was something like $1, $1.50. And he came to me, and as a teacher, I'm supposed to, you know, do something about this when kids don't have IDs. So he said he didn't have any money. I said, all right, man, come on, I got $1 or $1.50, like I'll help you out. And so across the lawn from my classroom, Dave, was like the main building there with the bookstore, the admin building, and then the nurse's office. And so it was about like, you know, 100 yards away, a football field away. And so the bookstore is where we needed to get the auxiliary name tag, the replacement. So I walk with Justin over there,
Yeah.
and he gets the ID, he puts it on his shirt, and I say jovially, "Don't say I never did anything for you." And his reaction was, he breathed in heavily, he went, and then he fell over and starts like shaking. And he's got into a seizure, and I had seizure training, so I dropped behind him to block his head from hitting the wall. And I yell up, and I'm counting at this time, you know, seconds to minutes. It gets more severe the longer he's seizing up, right?
Yeah.
So you want to avoid 5 minutes, say. And I shout up to the bookstore, "Hey, please get the nurse." And they book it out, grab the nurse, who books it over with a wheelchair, and she asks me, "How long has it been?" And I say 3.5 minutes. And so they pick him up, still shaking, get him in the chair, get him into the office.
Yeah.
He's taken care of, thankfully. And the rest of the year with him was a bit of a struggle, but he was able to graduate.
Nice.
And here's the fun part, Dave, is that they put the SPED kids on the side of the stage, and they go up last, because some of them, especially the autistic kiddos, with that much sensory things going on with the noise and the lights and all that, sensitivity, excuse me, they really can react aversely, right? And they can go into shock and things. And so Justin was waiting his turn, you know, by the side of the stage, and it just so happened that I get handed the card as the announcer with his name on it.
Okay.
And so I take this moment, Dave, to put on my announcer's cap, and I say, "Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, introducing your final senior from the 2017 class of Alhambra High School, introducing Justin." And the whole place goes bananas, right? And he comes on stage, and I give him a big hug, man, and he goes on his way, you know? And
And he'll always remember that.
I think so, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think so, Dave. That's one stitch, you know, of the amazing moments that have come out of teaching. But I'd like to think that he's doing real well. When times were tough, you know, and again, like that's what links us all. Like we all can relate to that, tough times.
Right.
But it's how you bounce back, right? Like the old adage, like it's not how many times you get knocked over, but how many times you get up. And it just seemed like I was born into that lifestyle, coming from the neighborhood I did, my family background, financial situations as a kiddo. But using those times and those experiences, man, to really learn from and not use excuses, but as reasons.
Right, absolutely, because they all coincide with one another.
Yeah, and I think if you look at those hard times as reasons to overcome, why not me? Right? I think you'll go far in life. I mean, we're here for a short period, I think, and you know, persevering through the tough times is a big part of that. And if you can model that for people, and maybe help people along their way by either modeling that or giving them a leg up, I think can also make a big difference too. And folks will also remember you for those moments that you reach down, you know, because there have been plenty of people who have helped me in times when I needed it, and I didn't want to let them down. You know, ulcerative colitis, that's something that I don't have anymore, but I had for a long time. And it was funny, man, like I was gonna take myself out, Dave. Like, I've never really talked about that. I'm not suicidal, but like I was so sick that the next day I just couldn't quite face. And it was, I thought about my family, but it was really like the memory of Pat Tillman that prevented me from doing that. Because if there was, you know, a heaven up above, I wouldn't like to meet him up there with him being disappointed that I checked out early on my own volition. So perseverance during the hard times, that's what I'd like to be remembered for. I tend not to quit, man. It's humbling, Dave. I appreciate it greatly. It's always nice to get recognized, you know, for the effort that you put in. I think it might be a mistake to use that as impetus or motivation to do things for people, that you're going to get something back. But if that happens, like this, for example, it really does mean a lot to me, man. And someone who takes the time as well to dig deep and take my story seriously and what I say seriously is endearing. I'll tell you, as a teacher, there's nothing worse than spending the whole night writing up a lesson plan and then bringing it to class and hoping the kids will engage, and they don't. Right. You know? So I appreciate you, you know, meeting me halfway here and giving me this platform, Dave. And it feels great. It feels incredible to be seen in this light. And I think as well that I was here at a time when I was able to slide in and maybe be effective and apply myself to where I could do things which made an impact and were memorable and allowed people maybe to grow and start their own thing like I had under the tutelage and guidance of Dumper Fu with Blunt Club and so many other DJs and poets who I met along the way. I think there's a time when you have to decide to give back, right? And I think I'm there. I think I've been there. It's a give and a take, man. And there have been a lot of people who have given to me, and I've taken a lot. So I feel like it's time for me to give back. And to be you know, memorialized in this way is special. What's that adage? You know, those who plant the seed that they know they're not going to enjoy the shade of, you know, understand kind of the meaning of life. I think it was Seneca said that. Yeah. How old is that motherfucker? So yeah, I mean, remembering people like that and taking their words and their experiences and applying it to my experiences currently have brought me a long way, man. And it does feel special to be acknowledged, and I greatly appreciate it, and I'm humbled by this opportunity. And I just want to say thank you both. Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you, Dave. And thanks to the community, man. Both the art community here in Phoenix and Tempe, those that had my back when I was struggling as a student, you know, post that bike accident, teachers who have gone out of their way to spend time with me to help me on IEPs with writing those, students who have empathized with me and maybe checked me when I needed to be, you know, when I should have taken a day off. Artists here who have given me so much, man, and who have maybe seen part of themselves in me and used that as a reason to give me a leg up and give me a chance. Even the ones that didn't, you know, the ones who told me to go home and not to come back, who caused me to say, fuck that, like, I'll be here in the morning, I'll be here tomorrow. Right. You'll see me. I'm appreciative of all those people. And I just want to say thank you. All right, folks, I'm Catalyst, and that was my 5.
And there you have it, man. Shout out to my man Aran. You know, Aran is just like I said, man, he is just one of the kindest individuals I've ever came across, man. He's got a huge heart, does a lot for the community. He gives a damn, you know, and you know, it was kind of a long time in the making, you know what I'm saying? He's been supportive of Just Give Me 5 since we started. He was supportive of my music run as well. Just a really, really good dude, man. And you know, everything that he's contributed to the scene, you know, I mean, especially from, you know, like Blunt Club days and to now having his speakeasy joint. I mean, it's the guy just continues going, man. And it's just, he's got one hell of a story. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't necessarily, I mean, I'm not gonna say I was necessarily like surprised, but it definitely caught us off guard, man. Like I didn't know there was so much. I mean, but that's what doing these kinds of shows, man. You learn that with everybody you interview. You know what I mean? It's always somebody. There's always so much more to everyone's story, and it just really just like blew me away. So, man, shout out to you, my brother. You know what I mean? I thank you so much for blessing our platform the way you did, and you know, I wish you nothing but continued success. Absolutely nothing less. And you know, you always got love over here at Just Give Me 5. All right. All right, man, make sure you guys are following him on social media. And shout out to my brother, Jimmy Nelson, on the camera. Make sure you guys subscribe to that YouTube channel. Tell a friend to tell a friend. All right. Well, this was definitely one for the books. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, though. Until next time, stay tuned, stay blessed, stay healthy, and just give me 5, y'all.
Everything you get, you got